edition of the Witsup podcast. It is fantastic to see all of your friendly faces. I have a question for you all. I'm interested, not for any reason in particular. I'm just a curious cat. Curious cat? What's that? Oh, curiosity killed the cat is that an old saying or a fable or a story? I don't know. I just remember there was a little song that, again, welcome to the inner workings of my brain, but there was a song that it was something about the cat, but the cat came back the very next day. Should have been a goner, but the cat came back. He just couldn't stay away. I have no idea what that's from. And I've somehow tied it to the saying curiosity killed the cat. So anyway, back to me being a curious cat. I just want to know when and how you listen to these podcasts, or if you're watching on YouTube, when do you watch these podcasts? Is it on the trainer? If you're just listening to the audio and not watching the YouTube channel, which the majority of people do that. Again, we've just decided to add it to our YouTube channel so that we can add closed captions so the hearing impaired community can enjoy our content as well. But so back to it. When and how, what time of the week are you listening to these podcasts? I'm just super curious. Not that it's going to change anything that we do. I'm just curious. Here in Australia, we typically launch each episode Friday morning. So that's sort of Thursday afternoon, evening in the States. Thursday afternoon. And then, that's very late Thursday, sort of Europe, UK. So do you listen to podcasts straight away as soon as a new one pops up? I know some of my favorite podcasts. I know exactly when they are going live, and I know exactly, Mondays and Wednesdays, one of my favorite podcasts comes out with 2 episodes a week. So I know exactly what I'm listening to that night before I go to bed. So anyway, that's all I've got to say. For nothing really to say, that's a good 2 minutes of me umming and ahhing and coming up with some nonsense for you all to listen to. Now, moving away from nonsense, it's time to chat to New Zealand athlete, born in the UK, but lives and has lived in New Zealand for quite some time. Her name is Sophie Corbidge, not Cobridge. We'll discuss that. And she's a bit of a breath of fresh air, in my opinion. So enjoy my chat with Sophie Corbidge, or if you're not in the triathlon community, it's Sophie Gwynn. Cheers. Wait a second. Back the truck up. Shut the front door. Hold the phone, folks. Which you probably there's a good chance you're holding a phone right now. But I do mean figuratively. After all the ramble that is and was my introduction, I edited the entire podcast, went through the entire thing, was ready to hit publish, and then realized that I did actually have something of importance, of value to add into my introduction. So now I'm doing that retrospectively. So next week is our 100th episode for the Witsup podcast. So we are inviting back our number one guest, who was Mirinda Rini Carfrae. We've asked her to come back so she can be our special guest for the 100th episode. Come and celebrate with us. If you've got any questions that we can fire across to Rini, that'd be great. We haven't actually had that much of an opportunity to catch up with her since she became a mother of 2 kids. So I'm super keen to just find out how she's doing. Obviously on social media, it looks like she's kicking up her training program again. So we thought it was a great opportunity to catch up with the multiple champion, Mirinda Rini Carfrae. So we'll see you next week, but listen to this episode first, obviously. Okay, bye. Welcome to the podcast. Now, I have a confession. I have been calling you Sophie Corbidge for years.
That is a crime.
It is. It's terrible because it's something that I may not always get it right, because maybe my pronunciation or enunciation isn't always great, but I'll always attempt to get it right. But that's a very clearly wrong. And I only realized this morning when I was double checking your Instagram, that it is in fact Corbidge.
Corbidge, yes. But it's also, there's a whole new element thrown in there too, because I just got married. So I'm Sophie Corbidge when I race, but I'm Sophie Gwynn when I teach. So I have like two personalities now.
Wow, is it amazing, or is it hard to keep up with two personalities?
It's really hard, especially when someone calls me Mrs. I have to take a, like, what? You just call me Mrs.? I was like, I am now, but I'm still Sophie Corbidge when I race.
That's interesting. So at school, do the students call you Mrs.
Gwynn?
Mrs. Wynn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right. Because, yeah, you've got the fact that it's someone's calling you, like everyone would just normally call you Soph, right? But now you're in the world of people need to, I was going to say people need to respect you. They would have respected you.
Well, even like the kids who know me as an athlete, they call me Sophie, and I'm like, you can't, sorry, you can't call me that now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you teaching today?
I have been teaching today. That's why I'm wearing this. I don't just rock around in this all the time. It's very teacher top.
I was going to say, you look like a teacher. You absolutely look like a teacher. You're nailing it.
I've just come from school, having my lunch break.
Well, thank you for squeezing us in on your lunch break as well. I appreciate it.
No worries. Busier the better.
Yeah, totally. I actually recorded an episode last week. I was filming at some insurance offices, like just so left field of what I normally do. And I had a 2-hour break, and I was like, I'm using this office as a podcasting studio. So I'm like, I took all my stuff in, and anyway, we do what we're going to do.
Exactly.
Now you've already touched on a couple of things that I was going to start with our chat. You've had a busy, in a world where the world kind of stood still for at least a year. You've actually been really busy, doing lots, achieving lots, doing new things, married, that's not a plural thing. You got married.
I did.
Let's start with congratulations on your recent nuptials. How long have you been a missus for?
Thank you. We got married on the 13th of February. So a few months now. Yeah.
Ooh, 13th, around Valentine's Day.
Yes, it was the day before, and George was super embarrassed about it because he's like, oh, that's so cringe. And originally when we chose the date, I genuinely, hand on heart, didn't realize. I was like, well, that's convenient because now you won't forget.
So we got married 15th of February.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was purely because it was a weekend that would fit into the timeline. And I was so thankful that it didn't actually land on the 14th.
Yeah.
I think I would have had to have postponed for months if it landed on the 14th. And it sounds
just
like you guys
the cringe factor.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be easier though for Brett to remember our wedding anniversary because it's the day after. So at least
he gets a warning.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow.
But no, it was such a cool day. And Ryan Sissons is a good friend of ours, and he emceed our wedding for us.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and we had like all the triathletes there, and it was a really, really cool day.
Oh, nice one. And did you have to postpone it at all due to the pandemic, or it pretty much ran?
Yeah, luckily we didn't. We kind of planned, so we got engaged in 2019, and we kind of planned to do it in 2021 anyway. The only problem is that I'm originally from the UK. So the only family I had there were my parents and my sister, because everyone else was stuck on the other side of the world. But we had that conversation and said, we don't know when it's going to be properly opened up. We live streamed it. So my friends luckily live streamed the whole thing so my family could watch at home. And we got a wedding video done so they could feel like they were part of it. And it was actually, I think, more emotional for my parents, not really knowing many people at our wedding.
Yeah.
But we had so many close, friends and family family that we consider friends that we consider family, that it was still special to us regardless. And we were really stoked that we went ahead with it.
Oh, nice one. You're still smiling, and dare I say it, you're still glowing from the wedding bliss.
It was a really cool day.
Oh, that's good. It's a bit cliched, isn't it? I say it as well. Our wedding day was the best day. It just being surrounded by, and like you say, not everyone could obviously make it to yours, not everyone in your family, but those who made it, I imagine if you look at it as truly a celebration, that's how we did it. And I had a ball at ours.
Yeah. I think everyone was just laughing and smiling the whole day. It was awesome. And now I have like a million photos that I put in frames just to see how many I can get away with hanging up.
Wait, have you already printed them?
Yeah, I printed them. I got the album printed. I've done so much, and I just want to see how many he'll let me put on the walls.
Oh my gosh, you are a teacher. You are an
organizer.
Gotta
get it organized.
Oh my goodness. It took me years to print out ours and I still have it. I think we've only got one printed.
No, Steve.
It's so weird. It's so, I don't know. I think we take for granted that everything's digital, right? So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So you're an organizer.
I am, very much. Love a plan. That's why COVID hit me hard. I was like, right, okay, this is, unprecedented times. I'm not good with that. Let's try and get as many things done as I can that I could control. And that's kind of what I did.
Yeah. Is that something that you actually have recognized in yourself?
Oh, massively.
In the past? Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like, have to have plans. Even George said in my wedding speech, like, it's going to be a weird few years without knowing what's going to happen. And, without a plan, you're not very good. You love a plan. I said, my family's the same. Always have been. And I think that's why teaching came naturally to me. But yeah, I haven't necessarily been great in the past with not knowing what's happening. So I've actually been quite proud of how I have dealt with this year, because it could have been a nightmare.
Yeah, a new skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. How did you two meet?
We met through friends. So George used to do triathlon, like age group triathlon, just as like a hobby.
He's a pretty handy triathlete, right? Did he do sub-9 in New Zealand?
Yeah, his first Ironman, he went sub-9 hours, and that was like a big goal for him. And he said from the start, he's like, one and done. I just get it done well while I can. Because he wasn't a fan of coming back when he was, in his 40s or 50s and doing it. He wanted to do it when he knew he could do it really, really well. I said, that's fine, you go for it. And he smashed it out. And I think because he had started from, not really very much, like he started swimming when he was 20. I don't think he really got the confidence until he started training with us a bit more to see how far he could actually go with it.
Yeah, right. So friends introduced you?
Yeah, at a Halloween party.
What were you dressed as?
I think I was a cowboy, and I don't even think he was dressed up. I honestly don't remember meeting him. He told me that was where we met. So, oh, did we?
First impressions last. Brilliant.
Yeah, and then we joked that he had 6 long months in the friend zone. That was actually when I was coming back from I had like chronic fatigue and took a while out of the sport. And at the start of our relationship was when he kind of came into my life. And I was doing like 30-minute swims or 20-minute jogs or like really small things to try and get back into triathlon. And every time he'd put his hand up and be like, I'll come. What are you doing tomorrow? I'll come. I was like, okay, you can come if you want. This is 20 minutes, but it's fine. And that's kind of how our relationship started. It was just more of like a close friend and then training partner. And then I kind of realized that he's the one that I wanted to talk to all the time. And it just naturally kind of progressed from there. It was a slow burn.
So that's the way you thought it was going.
Yes.
Was he thinking, no, I'm keen and I'm just going to keep playing the long game?
I think so. That's what all his friends said.
You sound like me, just completely oblivious to what's actually happening. And you're just like, all right, this guy, yeah, cool, we're just hanging. All right.
Yeah, you want to come for a little ride with me? It's fun.
He's training for a full distance triathlon, but sure, I'll do 20 minutes swims with you. Oh goodness. Okay. Wow. You mentioned chronic fatigue, and I feel like that's a direction I definitely like to talk to you a bit more about. And this is the moment that I apologize publicly, because we have actually spoken about this via email quite a few years ago. And I feel like it was when I maybe spoke about it on Witsup that I was going through something along those kind of lines. Is that when we first started having a bit of a chat?
Yeah, I think it was around 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah,
that sounds about right. Do you mind filling us in on how that happened? And like, I imagine as an elite athlete, eventually recognizing that and then trying to get back into a sport where you're so used to, for want of a better term, punishing your body to achieve results. And I say for want of a better term, but I feel like that is a mentality that we have So I do want a better term, but I also want a better approach to the way that we do things as triathletes. So anyway, back to you. When did you start recognizing that something wasn't quite right?
I feel like with a lot of people with a similar story, there wasn't one point.
Mm-hmm.
I think because it's something that kind of starts as a tiny little ball and it just rolls and rolls and snowballs into this like really serious issue. I wouldn't have thought that there was like a certain time that I thought something was wrong, other than maybe the fact that I tried to dive in the pool one day and I couldn't even swim one length. But it had started way before that.
Sure.
And I think it had honestly been happening probably over 3 or 4 years. I never used to have issues with energy. I used to be up, and obviously I get tired from training like every athlete does, but it just got to the point where I like didn't want to get out of bed really. Even going to the supermarket seemed like a massive big deal. And I just thought, okay, this can't be right. I had issues with my weight and my metabolism, and everything started changing. And I hadn't really changed anything other than I felt really, really bad.
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
I just think
issues with your weight. Do you mean you couldn't drop weight if that was a goal?
Yeah,
or
I was putting on weight, but I wasn't changing anything. Like I wasn't overeating, and I had so many comments of people saying like, you know, you're eating too much, or like talking behind my back. And I was just like, you don't know me. Like, yeah, I had so many comments of people, kind of within the community or within the coaching kind of arena going like, what's going on? You know, you need to watch your body like shape and weight. And I was like sitting there going, you don't understand. Like I'm not doing anything. And I think that was one of the major problems that I had with my fatigue. That was a really key factor.
So when you say there were people, I guess, in the industry, fair to say, that were talking about you, and I don't know if accusing is the right word, but jumping to conclusions, I should say, that you're eating too much.
Yeah.
Sorry, how old were you at this stage?
Gosh, so this was, it would have started when I was probably early 20s. So I had issues all the way back when I was maybe 16, 17. That's when I started to have these issues, but I didn't recognize them or understand them until I was a lot older.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably had it throughout my whole junior under 23 career, but didn't really recognize it till I was older. Mm-hmm. And because I know that the sport has changed so much from those times, for the better. Like we used to have in the squad all our body weights and BMIs written on the wall. And it was on this massive whiteboard wall. Everyone's weights and body fat percentages and all this information about you was just there for everyone to see. And like that's just such a confronting, horrendous thing. Wow. And I didn't think anything of it because it's just so normal.
Yep.
And now we look at our squad and there's a massive, focus on well-being and positive weight, body image, and the fact that it's more of a performance focus than a what you look like focus, that you realize how bad it used to be. I used to get weight all the time, skin folds all the time. And you just think that's so different to what it's like now. And thank goodness that happened, because the last year, I'd say probably over the last 10 years, it got to a point where it was so bad.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that things have changed.
Massively.
Yeah. I still think globally things need to change a heck of a lot still, but it's nice
I'd
to
agree
hear
with that.
That there's changes being made where you are. But back to when people were saying that you're eating too much and you're putting on weight and so on, did you feel comfortable responding to those allegations?
No,
or
I'm not a confrontational person.
That doesn't surprise me.
You kind of just let it go and you just think you don't know. And also because I didn't really understand. So it's like, am I? Like, is this my fault? Why is this happening? And I just think, when people are looking from the outside, they don't understand the bigger picture and realize that actually could be a medical issue, and not just she's eating too much ice cream. Because it's like, would have been the first person to say, I do not eat badly. And now the way I eat is so much more relaxed and I don't have to worry about it ever, because my body has now got to us. It's taken 8 years, but I've now been able to fix all those problems that I dealt with as a junior under 23 that I didn't even realize were problems.
Yeah.
And it's only now that I'm like, this is what normal's like. I don't have to calorie count. I don't have to keep a diary. I can just eat what I want and feel good. It's like, I don't think until you get to the other end, you realize how bad it actually was in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess now, not only emotionally, but physically, your body metabolizes food better now because
Way better.
it's doing what it's supposed to do. Like
yeah, it's never been starved. It's never
Yeah.
been, it's not overtrained. I have full confidence that my body is settled and it's happy and I can deal with whatever, comes at me. Whereas I used to be a wreck. I used to stress so much about traveling because I was like, I don't know what's in this food. I don't know where I can access food I can eat, and I had intolerances and all the stuff that my body wasn't working properly. Like I became extremely intolerant to dairy, to gluten. I had to have such a restricted diet because my body was just not happy. And now I can eat whatever I want. It's taken a long time. It's 8 years. Yeah. And that's obviously that was to do with my menstrual cycle too. So my period stopped, or they'd be super, super irregular. And for the past probably 4 years, on the day, every month, bam, bam, bam. And that's like, I know my body's working properly now.
Far out. The menstrual cycle is such a sign, that, and we just don't, and the greater we, including me, I don't look at it enough to help me figure out, what's happening with the rest of my body. But it's such a magnificent tool for that.
Oh, it's amazing. And even I did my second ever half marathon on the weekend on Sunday, 2 days ago.
Oh, second ever one. Wow.
And I got my period on the morning. And my first reaction was, oh, why? Why could it not have waited? This is a nightmare. Oh my goodness, what's happening? And I had one of the best runs I've ever had. And I was like, okay, well, it's clearly a good thing. I should be embracing it a bit more. Like, it's inconvenient. It is. But it just, shows how my body's functioning. And I think if you can kind of get in line with how it actually can assist you and help you, I think that's a really, really, really cool thing.
Yeah. And have you had help, or do you have help still with trying to, So who do you go to?
So my coach, he's really science-based. He loves research, facts and figures. He likes to delve into the deep, dark and, mysterious world of stats and things like that. And he finds the whole female, menstrual cycle really interesting for training. And so I was working with him and Stacy Sims a few years ago to try and suss actually when are the best times to be targeting hard training blocks and when's the times to, maybe to go back to aerobic, calm it down a bit, and how can we use it to actually. And she was one of the first people that said to me, actually, you'll go really well on your period. You might feel rubbish, but that's when I think she describes it, that's when your body is most like a male in terms of your hormones. And she said, you can get really good gains from being on your period when you race. And I was like, okay, well, that's a different way of thinking about it. And since I've kind of harnessed that and David's got an understanding of it, really helped my training. And just to understand, like, if you're not having a good day, why? And you think, okay, well, I'm in this phase. And then maybe the week after your period, okay, this is the time we could really hammer the intensity and go for it. And genuinely, it has helped me.
Yeah. Wow. And for anyone who hasn't listened, watched, read anything from Dr. Stacy Sims, you need to just jump on Instagram and follow her. I assume most people who listen to this podcast probably do already follow her, but if you don't and you're listening right now, I will leave a link in the description of this episode because she I think it's fair to say she is an absolute leader in this space, not just in triathlon, but in sport and particularly endurance sport across the globe. And it's really nice to hear a firsthand experience by an elite athlete as well, working with her and the importance of knowing your body.
And I think it's something that you can really harness from something that is kind of perceived to be negative or perceived to hold you back. If you think of it a different way, it can honestly really transform the way that you train and race.
Yeah, definitely. I love that your coach is a guy as well. And you obviously feel very comfortable talking to him about these kind of things because let's face it, society has always sort of said that it's icky. We shouldn't be talking about it. That's definitely changing. Absolutely.
Used to be in the too much info basket.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, you obviously feel very comfortable with him, which is great.
Yeah, he's awesome. And obviously has a wife and 2 girls. And I don't know if that helps. His girls obviously young. They were my flower girls actually. But I think even for him raising 2 girls, I think that's going to be a really crucial part of, raising young women in this day, being able to talk about these things and being able to use them to your advantage or benefit, as opposed to being ashamed and kind of hiding away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to, and we won't stay on this the whole time because we've got plenty of other things to talk about as well. But obviously there was the emotional toll and the physical toll on your body back in the early 20s when things really started to go wrong. Other than trying to find answers and figure out what happened, how was your headspace in terms of getting back into a sport that, and correct me if I'm wrong if I'm saying this not quite the right way, but a sport that kind of almost destroyed you?
Yeah, that's fair. And like, I genuinely don't blame anyone. It's never been about blaming for me. I also don't blame myself because at the time, people are just using the knowledge or information they have that they believe is right. Mm-hmm. So if I look back at my training now, and since I had my new coach, realizing the way that I had been training would be very much go really, really hard, really fast, peak, get to a point where I break, drop, and repeat that process again, drop back and down again. And I just had dug myself into such a massive hole that trying to climb out of it every time was harder and harder and harder, and every injury was the same. So I get an injury, I had stress fracture in my sacrum. Don't know why that happened, honestly. But coming back from that, it got harder and harder and harder. And I just think, how is it getting to this point? Like, I love my sport, I love triathlon, but currently I'm just feeling like it's breaking me, or like I'm breaking down from not even doing anything more than I thought I was capable of,
Yeah.
And so I had many times where I was like, this is it, I can't do any more. I need to stop. Like, this clearly isn't for me. And then it was actually George, my husband, and my coach, David, who got together because they knew each other and just said, like, we really believe in you and we think that you can take this a long way, but you need to step right back and trust us and start from the beginning. And so when I started working with David, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe 4 years ago, he said, it's going to be slow and it's going to be frustrating, but you have to believe in me. And at that point I was like, I do, because I clearly need help and this might be my last chance. And so I started working with him and we really, really gradually started building everything back up. I was doing very little training initially and then progressively increasing it over time, and spent almost 2 years, I think I didn't even do any speed work. Just trying to build my engine and get my body settled. And as soon as I started to ramp up the intensity, I'd have an easier week, and just like really, really gradually building up. So I didn't have these big peaks and big drops. And since I've worked with him, touch wood, I haven't had one injury.
Wow. Far out.
Yeah. The only issue I've had, which I've had my whole life, I get anemic. So I get really, really low iron.
Yeah.
But even that recently, the last year or so, has improved so much. And I think that's just because my body is functioning way better. And that's the only issue I've had since being with David.
Wow, that's amazing. And incredible for you to have complete faith in the process, because I imagine that's really hard. No matter how much you've learned from the past, not seeing immediate results is from a professional or elite triathlete's point of view, or anyone, but particularly elite, I imagine is very, very hard.
Yeah. Well, you have these benchmarks, right, that you can do. It's like, I know I can run fast. Why can't I run fast now? Why am I not doing any training to be able to run fast? And the whole time David's like, I have a plan. It's like almost like a 4 to 6 year plan. And then there's me going, yeah, but I want to be good now. And he's like, Sophie, you really need to tone it down. Just take your time. And now I got to a point where I've had such good consistent block of training that now I have that base behind me. Whereas before I wouldn't have had even 6 months of base before I got injured again. So every time I got injured, it was way harder to come back. Whereas now I can have a few days off, or I can have a week or so off or whatever. And it doesn't take me that long to come back because my base is so big. Yeah. And him trying to explain this to me at the start was really, really hard because I was like, yeah, but I want it now. But seeing it from this perspective as a 29-year-old, I couldn't thank him and George and my family and support who were kind of around me through all those hard times. Enough for what's happened to me now.
It's very similar to me trying to explain to my toddler Frankie that she can't have something right now, but if she waits for the long game, she can have it tomorrow. It's
Yeah,
same, right?
it is the same, just on a different scale.
So you're 29 now, and I guess over any period of time, we're always growing and learning, but you've obviously learned a lot about yourself as an athlete. Do you feel like you've grown a lot as an individual as well? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think was also a key thing, that when I did have those times of like feeling useless and I couldn't train, that my identity was just purely this triathlete. And that was the hardest part. It's like, yeah, but I'm Sophie the triathlete. It's like, hang on a minute. I'm actually a lot more than that. And I have a lot more to offer. And understanding that being a triathlete is a massive, massive part of my life, but it's not everything. And that has then in turn helped my sport in a way.
Wow.
Because I guess it takes the internal pressure of you being like, this is who I am. I have to do really, really well. And that horrible pressure you put on yourself. Whereas if you're just like, I'm here to have fun. I love triathlon. I love what I'm doing. You go better.
Yeah.
Well, I found that I have.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I speak about this quite a bit on this podcast, and I don't think I've found one athlete who disagrees with you. It's a growing, a learning process, and particularly, I guess, in endurance sport. And I know that you're more short course, but still, it's endurance. You know, in theory, that's what it is. And I feel like that's what allows you to get better as an athlete, particularly women. You're 29, but there's still so many years ahead in this sport. And I feel that's exciting.
It is exciting. And it's like, I am Sophie the triathlete, but I'm also Sophie the teacher, Sophie the wife, Sophie the daughter. Like, I like doing things like I like public speaking. I go and talk to other tri groups or younger kids, or I'm emceeing at a triathlon sports awards this weekend. Like, I love all that other stuff too. And, you know, that's just as important to me as triathlon. And I think that's been a massive shift for me, because especially when I left school, like, I have triathlete on the back of my leavers jersey. Why? You know, like, why did I do that? Because that's just what I thought I was. I was like, no, Sophie, there's a lot more to you than this. And even through uni, I think my undergrad, my degree in English and media, I was very much part-time. Triathlon was my life. And then it wasn't until I started doing my teaching course, which was still part-time, but I also really, really appreciated, or really, that meant a lot to me too. And I was like, there is more to triathlon, and that doesn't take away the fact of how important triathlon is, but it's more of like a balancing thing, right? You know? It's like, yes, I am a triathlete, but I'm also these other things, and these other things can help me be a better triathlete, and being a triathlete can make me be a better teacher, you know? Like, it's all about shifting it around and not placing priority on one thing, I think.
Good for you. That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's taken a while to get to that point.
Absolutely. Today, what's your relationship with triathlon?
I'm actually having a little bit of a downtime from triathlon. I'm running at the moment. Just for the last few weeks, I'm kind of coming into winter. My goals are kind of changing, and I'm actually at quite an exciting time for me, because I am at a point where I can choose my next challenges. And like, I did that half marathon on the weekend, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, this is something new and different for me. I don't normally like long stuff. But I did that, and I thought, well, that could be quite cool over winter, kind of knuckling down with my running and seeing how far I can take that. And that will then put me in good stead leaning into the next summer tri season.
Nice one. I like hearing that. Trying new things and realizing that there's so much more out there to be able to do. That's great.
Yeah, it is cool. And because I started as a runner. When I was younger, primary school even, and then heading into secondary school, I did athletics. I was 1500 meter runner, and that's kind of where I naturally sat. But I'd always swum, and I loved cycling, so that was like a natural progression. But to kind of be at a point where I think, okay, well, what other options are there? There's plenty. Where do I want to focus right now? And with the issues with travel things at the moment, I feel like running is a really good option for me to stay in Cambridge, to train here through winter, do some really cool running races. There's some like fun ones that you can do with your dog, even, that George wants to take Pippa on.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and just kind of have some times to aim for and try and see how fast I can get.
Oh my gosh, I want to do a dog running race, but my dog, well, he's getting a bit old.
It sounds really cool, actually.
Yeah, it would be.
Something paws and I don't know, it's something punny. But he's like, we really take the dog. It's something about running through mud or something like that. So that would be really cool.
Excellent. And then you're looking, I mean, there's records across the world of, I'm sure there's records with dogs, running with dogs, but there's definitely records like pushing strollers, things like that. There's different records across the globe. Yeah.
I'm not quite ready for that, Steph. Don't give George any ideas.
Oh, is he pushing for it over you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was one of the questions at our wedding. We played the shoe game, and where you hold up, he holds one of my shoes and I hold one of his shoes. We each hold one of our shoes, and you have to put the shoe of the person up who's the answer to the question.
Oh, okay. It's
so
like
on,
Ellen,
who does the most housework? I put my shoe up.
Got it.
And then the question was, who wants to have a baby first? And we both straight away, George's shoe was in the air.
Oh, that's funny. Is he a bit older than you?
Yeah. No, he's younger.
Oh,
he's awesome. 28. So it's like 15 months between us.
Oh, funny. The older woman. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm a cougar.
Oh, gosh. Oh, kids. Oh, you've got plenty of time.
I know. That's what I keep telling him.
Plenty of time. You've still got growing to do of yourself. So
I know I've got lots of triathlon to do too.
Exactly. Stand down, George. Just back off. You mentioned public speaking and doing some bits and pieces, and recently you did some commentary at Ironman New Zealand.
Yes, I did.
That was really your first time, right?
It was my first time, and they kind of asked me, or Cam asked me, he's like, would you be interested? And I love Cam. It was after he interviewed me at the Tin Man Triathlon, and I cried, of all things. He said I'd be really good. And I was like, really? Because I'm pretty sure I just cried. And he said, no, I would like you to come and be part of the team. And then I said, okay, that sounds really cool. And it was me and obviously the three, Mark, Brian and Cam, who are obviously all middle-aged men. So they wanted a little bit of diversity in the team. But it was awesome. We just had a lot of banter, and like, I've never done Ironman, but like George has, and my coach David, he is an Ironman kind of coach too. Yeah. So I took a bit of inspo from them to try and know what I was talking about, and because I know a lot of the athletes who are racing too. Kyle, he used to be my flatmate, so that was quite cool, having a bit of inside knowledge of people, and it was really, really fun. I loved it.
Awesome. But that's what you want from some commentary. You don't necessarily need to know all the ins and outs of long distance racing. People want the flavor about the people. That's what people want to hear. The others can do all the other stuff. That's fine.
All the juicy stuff.
Exactly. They're such a good crew. I'm such a big fan of Cam's. He's such a good man. And the whole New Zealand crew is so awesome.
Yeah, and they looked after me. It was awesome. Except I heard some playback, and I was getting so excited when people were finishing. I was like, who is this squawking on the microphone? Oh, it's me. I'm squawking on the microphone.
Oh, goodness.
But it was really cool. I got super into it.
Oh, far out. I mean, I still do the same. If I'm commentating at a live event at a finishing line, I'm trying to pump people up. I forget that the microphone's
right there.
Yeah, you don't actually need to yell. But how are you supposed to? You can't dial down excitement. Like
exactly, you can't sound excited with a quiet voice. Because obviously, Mike Riley wasn't there. I said to Cam, I was like, "Am I allowed to say you're an Ironman?" He's like, "Yeah, we're all gonna say it." So I had two of our close friends finished. They did the Ironman, and they were actually our groomsmen, or George's groomsmen, and I got to call them across the line, which was really, really cool. And they were pretty stoked too that I got to say, "Yeah, Max, you are an Ironman."
That is cool. That is very cool. I like it. Hey, so, and we've already sort of touched on this as well, and the top that you're wearing is a dead giveaway that you're a teacher.
Yes.
Just for those listening, would we say it's like a florally kind of top?
Yeah, it's very floral, very wavy, very primary school teacher-esque.
Okay, so that answers my question. What kind of teacher are you?
I am primary trained, but in New Zealand as a primary teacher, you can teach older. And at the moment I'm at the school, St. Peter's, where I did my last placement. And at the moment I'm actually relieving all years. So not only year 7 and 8, but all the way up to year 13. Today I was in a year 13 dance class, which I looked at and had to laugh because I'm not a dancer, but luckily they knew exactly what they were doing. So sometimes it's quite fun.
Oh God.
Get thrown into random subjects like Japanese. I can't really speak much Japanese.
How do you teach Japanese if you don't know it? Do you just say, here's the book?
Luckily, the teachers obviously plan the lessons if they're not going to be there. And I get a little run sheet to know what to expect before I go. So I kind of get the explanation. So if I have to read things out from a book or I can go around helping, I'll know what I'm doing before I get there. Yeah.
Right. So
it's quite fun.
In Australia, you're called a relief teacher. What's it called
I'm a relief teacher. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
But just for one school.
Okay. Right. And does that sort of satisfy your teaching urge at the moment? Just doing it
for now, while I have the flexibility to teach and the flexibility to train and kind of get all my ducks in a row. It's really like a really cool relationship I have with the school. And it's something that works for us both at the moment.
Awesome. So obviously organizational skills was one of the reasons that drew you towards being a teacher. Although I'd also argue that a lot of the teachers that I had at school weren't that organized. But anyway, what did draw you towards that kind of profession outside of being an elite triathlete?
I think one of the key differences is I feel like sport is quite a selfish thing, just in its nature. You kind of have to be selfish in terms of your own training, putting yourself first a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's something which I'm fine with in that context, but I also like helping people. I like relating to people. When I was a little kid at school, even people would kind of confide in me and tell me things that they wouldn't have told anyone else because they trusted me. And that was kind of at a point where I thought, okay, well, maybe this is something that could be good for me, I quite like relating to people or listening to how I can help people, and changing the way you're teaching to help individuals I find really satisfying. So you often get children with the same ability, but the way they do things is completely different. And I find that super interesting. Like you give them a maths question, they'll both do it completely different ways. And I find that really interesting. So it's like the way that you can kind of get the most out of someone by learning how they learn. And that's what I like about teaching. Yeah.
I really like that answer.
It's cool. It's really, really cool. And I've been working with like a lot of the year 7 and 8s who I knew last year. I now go back and teach again. And, I have the knowledge of how they learn. So I can help them with their work as I'm going around and be like, well, explain it to them in the way that they understand. And then they kind of have their little light bulb moment. You're like, oh, that's really satisfying.
Wow. So imagine this is, just by the way you're talking, this is definitely something that when triathlon is done, this will be the direction that you take. Yeah,
I can 100% hand on heart say that this is where I'll be going.
Yeah. But it sounds like it's kind of where you're meant to be as well.
Yeah,
in terms of that,
like too.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm not sitting here listening, wishing that I got to know you better earlier. You're awesome.
I'll start crying soon. I'm very emotional. When I talk to the kids in like group situations about like my triathlon journey or just other things, and I just start welling up, and everyone's like, why is this so, it's not even a sad story. I'm like, I know, I just really care. I'm like that person in Mean Girls who's there's that girl in Mean Girls that she says, I just have a lot of feelings. That's me.
I also rate you for quoting Mean Girls, one of the greatest movies of our time.
One of the best.
Yep, definitely. Tina Fey. Do you know who
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm impressed. Most short distance athletes who I speak to have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to TV and movie references. So I'm very impressed that you're all over that.
We have the same kind of genre, I think.
I think so. In every interview you ever hear, the question that people always ask is, who would you have to dinner? Like that just is always a question. Tina Fey is my number one.
She'd be good. She'd be interesting.
Wouldn't she?
Funny.
She's hilarious, but she's a game changer in the world of late night television in the US, but just television in the US and Hollywood and all that. I just, have you read her book?
No, I haven't actually.
Mate, you got to check it out. It's called Bossy
Okay.
Pants.
Okay.
I'm being very bossy telling you to do that now. I listened to the audio book because I hate saying it. I don't have time to read books. I should say I don't make time to read books because the time that I spend away from this kind of stuff, I want to be hanging with Frankie, not reading a book.
Yeah.
So
fair enough.
yeah. So it's a good excuse.
It is a good excuse.
But when it's an audio book, it's like they're talking directly to you and they're your best friend.
That's true. Hopefully like the people feel like we're talking to on here.
Exactly. It's exactly the same. And we're of the same caliber as Tina Fey.
We can tell them periods are good.
Yay, periods. Yay.
Get enough sleep. Don't overtrain.
Oh my God, sleep, overtrain and periods. Yep. That should be the title of your book.
I actually invested in a weighted blanket to help with my sleeping. It is genuinely a life changer. I love it.
Wow.
So it's they say you need to buy one that's, I think it's 10 to 15% of your body weight. I think our one is 7 kilos and it's got like glass, it's made of like glass beads inside. And it's just like an automatic calming feeling.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's used a lot with doctors with kids with autism just because it's a really calming feeling, but I love it. And it's genuinely helped my sleeping.
That is amazing.
Yeah. You know how like when you get a hug, you feel calm? It's the same idea, I think. It's like a grounding thing. So like I put it on top of my top sheet and then under my duvet and it just like, you kind of get sucked in and you just lie there. And it's really comfortable.
Amazing. I'm just thinking one of my best mates is a terrible sleeper. And I wonder if that will help him.
It genuinely helped us.
Interesting.
I don't think it's placebo either.
Yeah, right. I mean, it makes sense. I get it. I don't know if it's because he needs a hug, but maybe he does. Who knows?
Everyone needs a hug.
That's true. Absolutely everybody needs a hug. You're right. Hey, let's jump back. So we're going to go backwards and forwards. We're talking, we have been talking about you being a teacher. Let's flip that to what kind of student were you?
Oh no, don't go here. It's embarrassing.
Really?
I was such a teacher's pet.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, I imagine that you were a pretty good student.
Oh, yes. And I'm like still friends with all my teachers from primary school on Facebook. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was 100% teacher's pet. Like couldn't have been more of one.
Yeah.
But then I didn't bring them a coffee or an apple or anything like that. I just think I got on with all my teachers. I never had a teacher I didn't get on with. And I was also super scared of getting in trouble. So I literally just did whatever I was told, I would do it.
So your teacher's pet / goody two shoes.
Yeah, massive one. My dad told the story at my wedding about one time where our teacher didn't show up and we had an assembly we had to go to. But because our teacher hadn't showed up, none of my class wanted to go. They're like, oh, well, no one's going to know. We'll just stay in here. And I was the only one from my class who went to assembly and sat there on my own. And then I was the only reason they knew that the class weren't there.
Oh, so everyone else got thrown under the bus.
Because I was doing the right thing. Oh, it's so embarrassing.
How did your fellow students perceive you as the teacher's pet? Did you get? I imagine you still got along with them.
Yeah, like I wasn't so much that I stood out as, I wasn't a loner. I still had a friend group and they just appreciated that's just who I was. Through all my schooling from primary school, I'm from the UK, so I had primary school and then a few years of high school in the UK, and then I came here in year 10. All my friends just kind of accepted me as who I was, and yeah, I was a teacher's pet without being the loser. I was, but people accepted that that's who I was.
But I also feel like, and granted, I don't know you super well, but this is going to sound a bit creepy, but I've watched you at races, which definitely sounds creepy. But one of my favorite things at races is standing back and seeing how athletes interact, particularly just outside of race day, and with the short course racing, when you do the swim for meals and all that kind of stuff. I really enjoy watching those and just seeing how people bounce off each other. And I feel like you're, I don't know, like you just, like you're smiling and giggly now, but I feel like that's you to everyone.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to think so.
I don't know. Yeah. That's the impression I got, is that everyone knows who you are and knows that you're the happy, smiley, friendly.
Annoying.
Would we say annoying? What makes you say
I think
annoying?
I've been known to be annoying.
Oh, in what respect? Who have you annoyed?
I just think I find things funny that no one else does. So I just be having a right old laugh, and everyone's like, what? That's not even funny.
Each to their own.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. The impression I got is you're happy doing your thing, but just anyone who's around you, you just love, I don't know, love a chat. There's just
I like interacting with people. Yeah. I like having a laugh. I don't like it to be too serious. Even like in the classroom, obviously it's not just chaos, but I prefer it to be relaxed. And, you know, I feel like I get even more respect if it's that way as well. So like people will listen to me if I'm like, this is who I am, this is how I work. If you respect me, I respect you. Yeah. I don't want to be angry at you. I don't want to confront you. I just want it to be peaceful and calm, and we'll just get on and have a good time and be productive.
Yeah. And do you feel like that personality comes from your parents or from one side?
I'd say my mom is very similar. I definitely do have aspects of my dad too, personality wise, but I'd say my mom is quite similar. She's a lot shorter than me, but she's got blonde curly hair, big smile. And I think people interact with us similarly.
Yeah. What does she do?
My mum is a fitness instructor and yoga teacher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she has a little studio, lovely studio down where they live in Taupo. And she takes classes, lots of different types of yoga classes. She takes like an older, like a chair yoga for the older people, men's yoga. She does bar classes, all sorts. She loves it.
Chair yoga for
older people. So it's like the elderly who aren't as mobile, but they can do yoga in chairs or using chairs. It's really cool.
So cool.
Yeah, it is good.
Is that something she made up, or?
I don't think so. I think it's part of her yoga course. She actually went over to Australia to do a few courses.
Oh, right.
But yeah, she loves doing that and trying to include as many people in her community. She used to work in schools too. So I think I got a lot from my mum.
Yeah, right. And what about Dad? What does he do other than make you cry at wedding speeches and stuff?
He was a policeman for a very long time. I think he left the police maybe 4 or 5 years ago to become a private investigator.
Get out.
Yeah.
So,
which sounds really glamorous, but the way he describes it to us, it's not like what you'd presume. It's not like people snooping around to see if there's people having affairs or things.
So private investigators is one of those jobs that you see on the movies, and that is the people who are taking photos from the car with the long lens and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think I've ever known who that... Okay, hang on. Let me rewind. I imagine their role is to find out stuff that, say, the police can't necessarily go and do because they need to follow a pretty strict line of questioning or policy, whatever the things are.
Or they might hit a wall because they're police.
Yes.
Yeah. Like people don't talk because they're police.
Right. So then Dadsy steps in.
Yeah.
Wow. And uncovers.
And it's hard as well because he can't often talk about what he's doing. So it's like we have, the slogan in New Zealand for the police is better work stories. But Dad is like, I have limited information I can share.
So currently it sounds pretty boring what he does, but it's
it's probably not.
Interesting. So what style of personality, or what types of personalities do you get from him?
Well, I think Dad's quite logical in the way he does things, and he actually used to be in the police. He used to teach how to interview. So he's quite good at interacting with people too, or trying to get the most out of people as well. So I feel like that's something that I've kind of learnt from my dad.
Yeah. I wonder what techniques you learn as a police interviewer as compared to, say, something like I do, a media interview. Because I like to think I get stuff out of people, but it's not with a shining light in their face.
Yeah. And also it's interesting with Dad because he was a policeman the whole time I was, he joined the police when he was 16. So he's been a policeman my whole childhood. And I also feel like he did a really good job of kind of hiding a lot of stuff as well, because I think I'm quite a conservative, like risk-averse person, potentially because of Mum and Dad, because that's what Dad's, he's always been in an environment where he's seen bad things. So I'm very risk-averse and I try and keep safe a little bit too much, and people find that frustrating. But I think that's just because that's the way that Dad has like perceived the world for a long time. But in saying that, he also did a really good job of kind of hiding that part away as we were kids growing up. We always had a lot of fun with Mum and Dad, and things were lighthearted. It wasn't always, I was never scared of my dad or anything that he was involved in, even though he used to go off and, get held at gunpoint and stuff like that. As a kid, I didn't know that.
Yeah, right. As a kid, I don't know how you'd be able to process that.
No, exactly. Yeah.
I've always, I actually just spoke to a friend of mine not that long ago because they've got a teenage daughter who I guess is sort of going out to the wide world a little more at that kind of age, and he's a policeman, and it's quite interesting that the stuff that they know, the stuff that I know, and I think about Frankie, let alone a police officer with their kids out in the big bad world. It's I imagine it's a very tough balance on what you tell your children and what you
exactly. And then maybe one of the reasons that I do love following rules and doing the right thing is because of Mum and Dad. Subconsciously I just did what I was told just because it's the only thing I knew. And that may have been something that was reflecting from what he was dealing with as well with his job.
Yeah, for sure. Excuse me. I want to go back. You said very early on that you don't want to be just known as a triathlete, and that's how you see yourself. So you're a triathlete, you're a teacher. How else do you see yourself?
Oh gosh, that's a very deep question.
Just to wrap things up.
I think ultimately what I tell myself is I want to be able to sleep at night knowing that I'm a good person. Like I am not I hate confrontation. I don't like upsetting people. That's one of the worst things. Like I hate the feeling of someone being upset or angry at something I've done. That's just a personal thing for me. It's also a cause of a lot of stress.
Mate, I'm exactly the same. It causes me a lot of anxiety. Not that I'm going around doing bad things.
No, exactly. That's the thing, because I actively try not to. So that's when it does.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And then if someone doesn't text you back for an hour and you're like, oh God, what and you're rereading your message. Yeah. I'm the same.
Yeah. So I think ultimately if I can go to sleep at night knowing that I'm a good person and I've tried to do the best by as many people as I can, that sometimes negatively impacts me because I'm like I am a people pleaser. I do like to try and make everyone happy, which is hard. But if I can go to bed knowing that I'm a good person, that ultimately is what I would put at the top of my list of what I am.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, it's a little bit wishy-washy, but it's true, genuinely.
It's not at all. It's not wishy-washy at all. I understand why you say that, but I don't think it's wishy-washy at all. And
like,
I feel like
I just want to be a good person. Like, that kind of, you can get that a lot. I feel from people who aren't necessarily genuine in that. But that is something that I can hand on heart say that ultimately that is the pinnacle of what I want to be, is a good, genuine, honest person. Yeah. Above everything else.
Yeah. And it's obvious the way that you talk about teaching, I think, makes that point extremely obvious. I really like the way that you spoke about triathlon being a selfish pursuit, and not in a negative way, but it is.
Yeah.
And that's your way of being able to give back and balance that out. I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it.
Thanks.
I like it. Is that your dog whimpering in the background?
Yes, she knows that she can't come in here and she's very frustrated about it. Sorry.
Oh no, it's we welcome kids, dogs, sometimes cats. Depends on what kind of cat it is. I can hear it.
Yeah, she's not happy. Like, where's my mom?
Before we start to wrap things up, I do, and we completely brushed over it, which is my bad. But born in the UK.
Yeah.
I didn't realise you moved out here so late. I thought out here, New Zealand, this side of the world. I thought you were much younger when you moved out.
No, 14. I was year 10.
Wow. So what was the reason for the move?
My dad was recruited from the Met Police to the New Zealand Police.
How does one get recruited in the police force from one side of the world to the other?
I remember, like, it seems like it was a long time ago, but it seems like so long ago. I just remember we were sitting in our conservatory, as you do in the UK.
What's a conservatory?
It's like your little out. It's like a room outside, but it's attached to the house, and it's like glass.
Oh, okay. Like a sunroom.
Yes, it's like a sunroom. Yeah.
We keep things pretty simple here in Australia. Oh, so it's sun comes through the window?
Sun. Yeah. Yeah, the conservatory. And mum and dad were just saying, how do you feel about moving? And we were like, I've never moved before. In the UK, it's quite uncommon to move a lot. Often whole families will stay in the same village or town their whole lives. And we're like, where would we go? And dad's like, there's been some opportunities come up through work, either Canada or New Zealand. And we're like, have never been to either of them. It sounds all right. And then dad just went through the whole recruitment process, all the tests and stuff like that, had to sit, and it happened really fast. Like, it went from 2,000 applicants down to 200, and then finally down to like the 100 or whatever that was happening that they were going to take. And he said, all right, girls, this is really serious. Like, I'm in the runnings to be going. Are you sure? Are you okay with it? And we're like, did some research on New Zealand. At that time, it was just like sheep and kiwi fruit, and it sounds lovely.
Sheep and kiwi fruit.
It sounds good. And he'd said from the start, like, we'll give it 2 years, and if we don't like it, we'll come back. And we got to New Zealand, and the first day we were standing on the beach up at Orewa, north of Auckland, and we just said, we are never leaving.
Wow.
We are never ever leaving this place.
Wow. So sorry, your mum and sister?
Yeah, mum, dad and sister.
And your sister's older, younger?
Younger, a few years younger.
Right. But at the age of 14, you've cemented some pretty solid friendships at school and everything.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It was really hard initially, especially because when we first moved, we didn't have a house. So then we weren't in a zone, which meant we couldn't go to school. Yeah.
Homeschooled for a bit.
The first few months we didn't have a school. And we were getting up super early to go down to the local internet cafe and go on MSN and talk to our friends back in the UK. But I'm also super lucky because I have so many of those close friends still in the UK. So when I do go traveling, like, they're the ones that come and watch me race. My friends from primary school and sport growing up, which is super cool. But once we got settled into school a few months later, that was much easier, and got into sports clubs, running clubs. That's when we kind of got a bigger friend group, and it was much easier from then.
Wow. And did your sister responded the same way when? Yeah,
very similar. She was a bit younger, so she was 11, which I feel like is a little bit easier.
Yeah.
She settled in straight away, and it was just off she went, happy as.
Wow, it's such a big move. Like, you couldn't get further away, really.
Yeah, well, that's what, like, my husband George says. He's like, I don't know how your family did that. Like, that's so brave.
Yeah.
And it is hard, like, with the way the world is now, it's not as easy to go back. And when we didn't have all my family at the wedding, that was hard. And we kind of knew that when we moved, and mum and dad said, this is going to be the hardest part, being so far away, because it is a very long time. That trip is a very long way.
Yeah.
But the opportunities we've had here and the life we have here, it's definitely been worth it.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like it. Yeah. A lot of my friends with family back in Europe and the UK particularly, have struggled. And obviously everyone across the globe has struggled. And you
always feel guilty. Like, we feel guilty. We're just like, oh my goodness, how lucky are we?
Yeah. It's almost like survivor's guilt, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, this isn't happening to us. My nan got COVID. My my dad lost a friend to COVID actually, but my nan got taken into hospital on Christmas Day.
Oh God.
And we didn't hear anything. It was the most horrible, stressful time. She was in and out of hospital for a few weeks, but she survived.
Wow.
Yeah. She's happy as she watched our wedding video and was like ringing me saying how lovely it was. Oh, I'm so glad you're alive.
Oh goodness. And were you the first grandchild to get married?
No, she has some, I have older cousins, but I think I'm the first on my mum's side.
Okay. Yeah. Oh,
second,
wow.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy world. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. If anything, the last year and a half has taught us is just to give it a crack. And in terms of like your family moving over, if they did it right now, different story. Yeah. But back then, like you say, worst thing that happens, you don't like it, you move back.
But it was brave. Like, kudos to my mum and dad, because that was a big move. And I remember we stood on the, at the airport looking out at the plane that was taking us to New Zealand. And my dad was like, oh my goodness, this is real.
Yeah.
We brought our dog over too, because he didn't have to quarantine back then. So our dog, he's no longer with us, but he came over and he lasted till he was like 18. He loved New Zealand.
New Zealand agreed with him.
Yeah.
Oh, what kind of dog?
He was a Staffy / lab. So Staffy lab cross, and lived way longer than we thought. He was about 10 when we moved over, and we're thinking, he might not last the trip. And then he lived for like 7-8 years after that. It was amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. Dogs are the best.
They are.
Dogs are the best. That is, dogs are always a great spot to leave a podcast episode, in my humble opinion.
100%.
Mate, thank you so much for sharing your story. I only knew bits and pieces of it, so it's been really nice to get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you, Steph. Thanks for having me. Before
I do let you go, and obviously people would have gotten a lot out of your story, particularly when it came to the chronic fatigue and all of those kind of things. But what message would you like to send anyone out there who's listening about your story?
Yeah. You've got to prioritize your health 110%. Keep your circle small. So the people you trust, the people you receive information from, make sure it's those people that have your back, that genuinely do, because there'll be people that, you think care, but ultimately, are they caring about you, the athlete, or are they caring about you, the person? And don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something.
I like it. Yeah. Wise words.
This ends our session today, children. Have a good afternoon.
Wait, one last question. How many times did you cry at the wedding?
Oh gosh, it was all day. But my dad was worse than me. My dad didn't stop crying. He said, "Is there one single photo of me where I'm not crying?" Like,
nope. That's so cute. I love that. Oh, perfect. Mate, Sophie Gwynn, if you're listening to this as a student or in the education world, or Sophie Corbidge, if you're in the triathlon world. I had to double check though, because I went to say Corbidge. I'm like, I know that's not right.
Thank you, Steph.
Gosh, thank you. We'll chat again soon, hopefully.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
See ya.